Hello, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Azul and marhaba to Arni Speak You show. So today we have a very special guest. I'll give you a hint. I'm in his office right now. Why am I in his office when he should be here? Well, you'll just have to wait and see who this is. Leticia, how are you?
Hi, Salman. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Speak You. I'm great. What about you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I'm really happy that things are getting back to normal. I went to Bab al Wad yesterday and had ice cream. Farhan, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
How about
finally. Still kind of scary. I've been going to the beach, making the most out of it. Like, I really love tanning, so I've been going to the beach and the pool. That's about it.
great? Well, we have really incredible guests on our show. Last time we had Stanley Talks, and a lot of you guys tuned in and watched this talk. I think it went really well. I just want to remind everyone out there to subscribe to our channel. Click this yellow red. I'm colorblind. Red rectangle here. Uh, Subscribe, abone, and that way you can watch us whenever we're live like this. We always have great shows planned for you. Um, but anyway, so today we have a really, really important special guest. He's very, very popular. Um, I'm going to show you who I'm talking about. He's a very, very popular guy. Um, you know, always surrounded by uh,
Oh,
just.
he is very popular.
Um, this is a hint. He doesn't age. This was from 2009 when he was in Egypt. He looks like he does today. Clearly, some good Norwegian genes. That's another hint. Um, Leticia, do you know who I'm talking about? You should,
Yes,
because he's your boss,
of
technically.
course I do. Khalid is someone that speaks great Arabic. Like the first time I met him, that was the first thing. Like I was thinking, how does he speak such great Arabic? And actually, he speaks it so well that he taught it. He taught Arabic in Harvard. He taught Arabic at a university in Boston, I believe. He also taught them in immersion programs. Immersion programs is basically when you surround yourself with only native speakers. كشغل كي تحبوا تعلموا اي لونج تروحوا في بلاصة فيها غير اللي يهضروا هذيك لا لونج وتفرسيو وحدكم تهضروا بها باش هكا تولفوا بالسيف. Yep.
Great. Well, I'm gonna give it to Khalid. Khalid, our very special guest, Labas.
Hi, how's it going? So yeah, believe it or not, that's actually true. Hold on, I think my camera just got turned off.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, give me just a second.
الكاميرا حشمت من خالد. Anyway, yeah, Khalid, can you believe it that he speaks Arabic so well that he actually taught it at Harvard? I think I'm really interested to hear more about his story. So when he's back online, we'll discuss that. Khalid, he's been here in Algeria for a year. We got here at the same time,
Here he
but
is.
oh, he's back.
Backward, yeah.
He actually taught it at Harvard.
Technology always fails at exactly the wrong moment. Okay, so yeah, believe it or not, that's actually true. I used to teach Arabic as my full-time job at a couple different universities in the United States. I was teaching at Tufts University in Boston for a year. Then I worked with Middlebury College's study abroad program, which is in Alexandria, Egypt for 2 years. And that's where the picture is from. And then I taught Arabic at Harvard University for 3 years. So there are probably hundreds of Americans out there who maybe speak Arabic kind of like me, which might be an amusing thought for you guys. So yeah, a lot of American diplomats joined the Foreign Service, which is what we call the diplomatic corps, after a previous career. So they used to work as something else. For instance, before he became a diplomat, Adam used to be a business consultant. And Emily used to be a journalist before she became the director of the American Cultural Center in Algiers. And Gautam, who is the chargé d'affaires, now that Ambassador de Rocher has left, before he became a diplomat, used to be a public defender, which is a lawyer or attorney who works with the defendants who don't have the money to pay for their own lawyer.
If I can interrupt you there, Khalid. كما راكم تشوفوا خالد راهو يقول used to كي يكون يهضر على الكارير اللي كان يخدمها كما قال هو he used to be an English teacher, an English professor. He also like used to تستعملوها كي تكونوا تهضروا في الباسي كي تكونوا تهضروا على حاجة كنتوا تديروها في الباسي like the examples Paul gave.
Yeah, exactly. So Salman, what did you used to do before you started working at the U.S. Embassy in Algiers?
Well, I know it looks like I had a really long career and I'm very professional and wise and old. I did not really have a job before this. I used to work at the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica. Yeah, man. And before that, I was a graduate student. So I was getting my master's back in Washington, D.C. So Khalid, before you talk about your experience as a language teacher, can you tell us about your experience as a language learner? How did you learn Arabic? I mean, I've studied Arabic for 5 years total, and I'm always impressed by how well you speak Arabic. You've studied it for however long you have, but you got here in Algeria and you're fluent within the first year in Darja. What advice would you have to give to someone who's learning a foreign language?
Well, okay, so yeah, I'd like to. I'll start off today by talking about how I learned Arabic before then going on to how I taught Arabic when I was a professor. And then finally, I'll focus on lessons that could be useful for you, for our Algerian audience, as you are learning English or another foreign language. So language immersion means you are using nothing but the language you're trying to learn all the time. You surround yourself with that language, because to immerse yourself in something means to surround yourself with it. So you are surrounding yourself with the language. I myself learned Arabic entirely in the Arab world. I never studied the Arabic language in the United States. I studied Modern Standard Arabic for 6 months in Jordan when I was in college. And then after graduating from college, I moved to Egypt for 2 years.
Khalid, can you tell us more about your experiences in Jordan and Egypt? How did you live there and how did you learn Arabic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in Jordan, I was basically just learning in the classroom. It was just Modern Standard Arabic, اللغة العربية الفصحى, and not the Jordanian dialect, not the language or the dialect that Jordanians would normally speak. But so outside the classroom, it was very hard for me to understand people. My roommate was another American student learning Arabic, and I was living in a part of town where a lot of the residents spoke English and didn't have the patience to carry out a conversation with me in my formal and beginning level or then intermediate level Arabic. I remember I think I'd been there for 3 months when finally someone told me, people don't actually say urid. You can say biddi in Jordanian. And I hadn't known that. It just blew my mind. But then, so when I moved to Egypt, I had a much better sense of how I could be more successful in my language learning. And from the beginning, my mindset was very different. Firstly, I decided to live in a remote area where almost no one spoke English. I actually lived in a small village, and I socialized or hung out with Egyptians, not with foreigners or Americans. And secondly, I was living with an Egyptian family, and they spoke to me entirely in Egyptian dialect. So to be honest, it was really difficult at first. At first, I was just lost because my Arabic was not advanced when I first arrived. But every day, all of my interactions from morning to night were in Arabic, whether it was, chatting with the 4 children in the family during breakfast, or riding in a microbus for an hour to go to work, sitting next to 14 Egyptians in the microbus, or ordering food from a restaurant. And I would tell people that I didn't speak any English, just to make sure that everyone was going to speak to me in Arabic.
يا خالد فأنت قلت لهم إيه؟
ده أنا هقول لك أنا قلت لهم إيه بقى. I would actually tell people that I'm Norwegian, which is not completely untrue. I mean, it's not true, yes, but I am of Norwegian origin. 5/8 Norwegian, and then 3/8 German, which is basically the same thing as Norwegian anyways. So I would tell them that I don't speak any English. I only speak Norwegian or Arabic. So you have to either speak to me in Norwegian or Arabic. And of course, nobody speaks Norwegian. Only the family that I lived with knew that I was actually an American.
وخالد كيفاش درت باش ما فاقولك شغل كي زعما ما سمعوكش تهضر اونجلي في التليفون ولا كي يجي لك واحد يقول لك هضر لنا باللغه النرويجيه كش كنت دير؟
Yeah, I mean, I never really got in trouble because nobody else speaks Norwegian, but لا خطرة كي يقول لي كاش واحد يحضر لي بالنرويجية وانا بينسوغ خطيني نولي نلعبها ونعرف نهضر وانا غير نتيري برك. But a couple times, yes, it was a problem, once or twice. So one time I was at a party with an Egyptian friend, and he surprised me by bringing a real Norwegian. He said, hey, here's someone I just met from Norway. So now of course, I'm pretending not to know how to speak any English, and this girl from Norway doesn't speak any Arabic. And of course, I don't actually speak any Norwegian at all.
My God, so what did you end up doing?
So I don't know how, but I was saved by the bell. My Egyptian friend's phone rang at that exact moment. And so he went out on the balcony to take the call. So I quickly explained to this Norwegian girl what was happening. And luckily she was willing to help me out. And when my Egyptian friend came back, we pretended to speak to each other in Norwegian, just like maybe she was speaking real Norwegian, I don't know, but I was just making up sounds.
Khaled, what this reminds me of? There's an expression I found a couple days ago and I saved on my phone. It applies to you. It says, oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive. And it perfectly applies to your situation. It means you shouldn't lie because it is much more complicated than telling the truth. And you'll find yourself in situations like Khaled did.
Exactly. Because if you lie, then you always have to remember what lie you said to who. And so it's very complicated. In Egypt, they say el-kidb malush reglain, which is basically the same meaning as, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive, which is, by the way, it's from a poem. I don't remember who wrote the poem, but it's a very famous expression in English, yes. I thought the expression you were going to focus on was saved by the bell, which means to be saved by an intervention of some sort at the last minute. Yeah. And it was also a great TV show, of course.
A TV show? I've never heard of a TV show called Saved by the Bell.
Are you serious? Where were you in the early 1990s? I thought everyone watched that show growing up.
Fine. You always bring this on me. I guess I wasn't born yet. Well, 1991, but still. Maybe I shouldn't have revealed my age on camera. Anyway, let's stay on track. So you offered some good advice for our viewers who want to learn English, who want to learn foreign languages, but maybe they're not able to travel abroad and spend a year learning a foreign language. So basically, avoid your fellow citizens. يعني روحوا برا صح ما تشوفوش الجزائريين ما تكونوش معهم باش تمارسوا اللغة الإنجليزية ولا فرنسية ولا إسبانية. So basically just be around other people who don't speak your native language so you can practice and you're forced to learn it. So, but what if you can't? What if you can't get on a plane? I mean, clearly the airports are still shut down. Some people don't have visas. How do you practice a language through immersion if you can't actually immerse in another country?
Right. So the traditional conception of immersion is that it means going to a country and being surrounded by native speakers. But it doesn't have to be like that either. There is a great model for a language program which tries to create an immersion experience for students in their own country, in this case in the United States. So that example is Middlebury College, which is well known for its immersion approach. They have an intensive summer immersion program, and they've had it since, I think, since about 1918, since World War I. I could be wrong on the year, but it was either since World War I or World War II. And they offer this same immersion approach for Arabic, for Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French, and a few other languages. And so how do they do this? The day the program starts, all students, even those that do not know a single word in Arabic or a single letter or whatever language, they sign a promise saying that they are only going to use the language that they're trying to learn for the next 2 months. So this is an important point to understand. So let me explain that in Arabic a little bit. مع الأول يعطوا لك ورقة تسينيها باش توعدهم باللي راح تهدر غير اللغة اللي راك حاب تتعلمها وما عندك حق تحكي حتى لغة أخرى في الشهرين اللي راح تجوزهم لتمه. So also, just like as if you were in another country, this program creates an environment and situations to use the language. So students stay overnight in dorms with other students who are learning the same language and with the professors who, of course, are generally native speakers or who are fluent in that language. And their meal times are just for those learning the language. So they study the language in the classroom, but after classes, they have all these different activities, and they call them clubs, like soccer, dancing, cooking. Everyone chooses their own thing, and it gives them opportunities to use the language 24 hours a day, basically, every time except when you're sleeping. Now, it's not really possible to do this whole program at the same scale as Middlebury, because they have, I think 10 different languages and a couple thousand students every summer. But, any program or teachers of English, they can create an immersion weekend, for instance, where you take your students away somewhere for a weekend and just for those 2 days, use only English or whatever language. So they're learning and studying, but they're also living in the language. And in the classroom, teachers like myself also use elements of this model to maximize the language learning. So for instance, when I taught Arabic, I used Arabic with my students 95% or more from day one. Like I taught students basically learn how to deal with not understanding and not knowing everything. They don't have to understand everything.
مي خالد هذه لازم لها تاني تشارك summer program ولا immersion program. وش عندك نصيحة لعباد اللي راهم في الجزائر وحابين يتعلموا اللي هنايا في الجزائر؟
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, I would say this matters for our audience in two ways, potentially. One is that if you're an English teacher, you should be in Algeria or wherever, you should be trying to make your classroom an English-only environment. I'm saying English only, but again, realistically, the goal is about 95% in English or whatever the target language is. There's some very limited situations where you can use a bit of your native language. For example, if I have a complicated language learning game for beginning level students, I might explain it in English in 20 seconds rather than trying to take 5 minutes to explain everything in Arabic when I'm an Arabic teacher. So just so that students understand what's going on. But secondly, if you're just someone out there, a student, trying to improve your own English, you can still create a partial immersion environment. Find a group of friends or classmates that are as enthusiastic for learning English as you are, and create an English language club with them. We'll add a link in the comments later, or maybe in the live chat, which give you materials to help create an English language club. And so then interact with those friends or classmates entirely in English. Make your own version of the language pledge if you want. And it's important to keep in mind that, you know, during this immersion experience, your language production, the language that you produce, is not going to be perfect. There are going to be mistakes, lots of mistakes, or overly literal translations. And so والله غير ساعات يقتلوني بالضحك. ليك هذا كان يقرأ عندي. شوفوا المثال اللي أعطاني، اسمعوا وقولوا إذا قدرتوا تفهموه. So I said, and this is how I would speak in Arabic actually in the classroom. كيف تعرفت على صديقك هذا? And then the student replied to me, نحن كان لنا صديق مشترك في كتاب الوجوه. And I'm like, what? Kitab al-Wujuh, what is that? And then I realized, oh, he wants to say Facebook, but because they have this language pledge and he thinks he can only speak in Arabic, that he can't say the word Facebook. So, you know, people create language which is not perfect, but I think that's fine. And another point is, so also we encourage students to use the technical term is circumlocution, yeah. Circumlocution, I think, which is explaining a word that you don't know, like that word, which I just mispronounced. Like you explain your way around it. So if my beginning level Arabic student does not know the word jar for neighbor, he could say الرجل الذي يسكن بجانب بيتي, because he doesn't know that one word. I don't want him to stop in the middle of a sentence and say to me, كيف نقول neighbor بالإنجليزية? Because that stops him from thinking and doing everything in Arabic. But yeah, generally being able to laugh at yourself and your own mistakes is actually a very useful skill in this type of immersion learning. It's always going to be far from perfect. Like I'm not even mentioning the common grammatical errors, pronunciation mistakes, and errors in word choice. And all of those, sometimes as a teacher or professor, I'm not even going to correct them. No, I'm not going to correct every mistake. But the end goal is not perfection. You know, perfection is impossible. You're going to make mistakes, but that's fine. The end goal is communication. And in an immersion summer program like this, the students do achieve a very impressive ability to communicate in just 2 months. And I mean, I guess I'll just say that you can do this here in Algeria with other students who want to improve their English. Do a weekend together where for 2 days, you and your friends are speaking only in English. And of course, do still wear your masks and be socially distanced, but or go and have lunch together. And for that 1 hour or 2 hours, you are only going to communicate with each other in English for everything. So write down in the comments if you're interested in meeting up with other Algerians who to learn English this way.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Khalid. If you know any of our viewers are watching, you're all very engaged in the chat. We have tons of questions for Khalid, which we will get to very shortly. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to grill him. But please write in the comment section, you know, where you live, in what city rather, and if you're interested in forming this kind of immersion group to practice English with other Algerians, you can contact each other and, you know, form a group. I wanted to take this time also to plug in the American Cultural Centers. We have one of these in Algiers at the Embassy, Constantine at the University of Menturi, Oran at ONS, I think. No, University of Oran, and American Shelf in Bashar, also one in Wargla. So we have all of these great resources. These are communities of English students and teachers and volunteers that are interested in practicing English that you can always reach out to when hopefully we can come back and socially distance with our masks. So Khalid, if you talked a lot about immersion and learning through immersion, but you were also a teacher at Harvard. Now, I don't think Harvard has an immersion program. What are your principles when you're teaching in the classroom in Harvard in this kind of situation?
No, that's absolutely right. Harvard does not have an immersion program. And I mean, you do always have to keep in mind, what are your students' goals? So at Harvard, it's a little unusual in that there are a lot of graduate students, masters and PhD students who are more interested in learning to read, specifically that one skill, in reading old texts, because they want to, do a PhD in Islamic studies, for instance. So it's a little unusual in that sense, but at Harvard, the students would have Arabic class for 5 hours a week, whereas an immersion program, it might be 20 hours a week. But regardless, I am still trying to help them become balanced speakers of Arabic, and I would have several principles of language teaching that I apply even in that situation. One is to give students useful language. I don't know if Emmanuel, I don't know if you studied with this book, but there's a book called Al-Kitab, like that's the name of it, Al-Kitab, which is the textbook used at most universities in the United States. And it has a focus on academic Arabic, and there's not a lot of survival Arabic. I think you're in the middle of the second year before you get words like cup or dog or the colors. So like if you're going to an Arabic speaking country in the meantime, you do need to be able to perform basic tasks to communicate. Otherwise, it's going to be very discouraging. If you've studied Arabic for 2 years and then you discover that you cannot cannot tell the taxi driver where to go. So that's the first principle I'd say I follow. Also make it relevant, make it relate to the students' interests. So I start with everyday survival, learning how to perform basic everyday tasks in Arabic. And then later, you can, depends on what your students are interested in, you can get into politics or music, or, that's much later down the road. Thirdly, as I mentioned earlier, I stay 95% in Arabic in the classroom, a little less at the very beginning, but still always mostly in Arabic, and aiming very quickly to get to the 95% in the target language. So for English teachers here, that would be 95% in English. And also related to that, very minimal grammar explanations. I don't use class time to explain grammar. It's much better practice to have students read an explanation beforehand at home, and then in the classroom, you use the time actually applying those rules. Doing tasks and real life situations. So if my students only have 3, 4, 5 hours of class a week, then of Arabic class, then those 3 or 4 hours better be in Arabic, because it's their only chance to use the language. And then the final principle I would say is self-correction and peer correction, which meaning I don't generally just I don't interrupt students. I don't say, no, you said that wrong, it should be this. I will prompt them. So if a student makes a mistake and says, for instance, أنا تريد أن تشرب qahwa. So, you know, I see a mistake in the verb conjugation. I don't interrupt. I would just ask them, ana turid, and then they would correct themselves. Ana urid, or maybe a classmate would correct them, because it's giving them time to think about it, think about the mistake that they made, and it sticks with them better than if I just jump in and correct it.
Great, Khaled. I think you gave us some incredible examples of immersion. A lot of Algerians out there who want to learn English, I suggest that the first thing you can do is form groups between yourselves. I think the beautiful thing about learning English is that it's very easy. In every country, you'll find someone who wants to learn English, who speaks a little bit of English. So you can all get together, form little groups, and kind of encourage each other. Kind of like going to the gym, you know? If that person, your friend, isn't going to the gym, you're going to remind them, hey, you got to get in the gym and lift some weights. The same thing, you can say, hey, you got to speak some English. So I love to see all these questions. Khaled, we got a question for you from Yasmin BNK. She wants to know more about your time in Egypt. You were living with a host family. How was it? Why did you live in Egypt? And Sabarena, bonus question for you, is she wants you to speak in Egyptian. So I'll let you decide.
Okay, maybe let's see, the first one is, why did I live in Egypt? Okay, so, I mean, basically, I was living in Egypt because I saw it as a more useful place to be immersed in Arabic than Jordan. And I wanted to just try out a new experience somewhere else in the Arab world. Because Jordan was great, I absolutely loved it. But it's also a pretty small country. So in 6 months, I'd seen almost everything there. And I felt like I was ready for the step up to Egypt, which is it's a more difficult experience, honestly, for foreigners living there. But I feel like in terms of immersion, it's great. And finding a family is really important. And the second question?
Exactly, the family part.
Yeah.
So you were living with the host family. How was it? Did you have culture shock? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, culture shock always happens one way or another. Actually, I have a funny story about this. But yeah, I mean, moving from the United States to this, it's a very small village in Egypt. It was a major cultural transition. And there were times when cultural misunderstandings happened. أنا أحكي لكم هذه. واحد النهار زميلتي بالبيورو هي جات تتعشى معنا يعني عند العائلة اللي كانت مستضيفتني، والطفلة نباتية فيجيتيريان ما تاكلش لحم، وهذه عفسة بيزار بالنسبة للمصاروة اللي ساكنين وسورتو اللي ساكنين في الجبل. كانت سلكة شوية عربية. قالت لهم أنا ما باكلش لحمة حمراء. في نيتهم وش داروا؟ راحوا جابوا لها شحم مرصوات. مسكينة حشمت وما حبتش ترجعهم. أكلت وسكتت. So it was just this like bowl of pure animal fat. And like, imagine if you're a vegetarian and you have this, and like, you know, culturally, it's kind of embarrassing just to tell someone no that you don't want something, especially when you've just made a special request. So she ate some of it, and then when an opportunity came, threw it out the window when no one was looking. But yeah, go ahead.
No, please continue.
So yeah, I mean, those cultural misunderstandings definitely happen. It's inevitable. Also, when so later I was working in Egypt. I was working with American students who were studying there. So this is when I was a professor of Arabic. And so I had, you know, usually about 30 students that were living either with Egyptian families or with Egyptian students in the same, they were living together in the dorms. And so that was also a great immersion experience for them, linguistically and culturally.
Khalid, we also have a question from Nadia Bukris. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She says, any advice to improve the accent?
So accent is tough. Partly because a major part of accent is age. Basically, if you start learning a language, if you are about 13 or 14 years old or younger, you can pick up a native accent. And if you start after that, it's almost impossible, actually. Very, very, very difficult. So, I mean, the United States is a country of immigrants. So we see this all the time. There are lots of immigrants who moved there when they're 20 years old, and they're perfectly fluent. But because they were older than 13 or 14 or so when they started really learning the language, they'll always have this slight accent. So that you can't do much about. But the good news is that it doesn't really matter. Again, what is the goal? The goal is the goal is communication. No one's ever going to think that I'm actually an Algerian, right? But I can still, the goal is to communicate. So I wouldn't, listen to lots of movies and imitate exactly what they say and everything. But if you still have an accent, it's not the end of the world.
Khaled, we have a question from Himes Sama. What is your opinion about using apps to learn language? For example, Hello Talk. I've never heard of this one, but what is your opinion?
I think it's great. When I started learning Arabic in 2000 or summer 2001. So that, like, at that time, you barely even had the internet, and you could barely find anything in Arabic on the internet. And in the United States, it was pretty hard to find an Arabic language newspaper. So it was not easy to teach yourself or to keep up Arabic living in the United States after I came back from Jordan. But now there's such a proliferation, such a huge number of apps. Anything where you are communicating with other people in English in different ways, and speaking and writing, it's great. Even if you're on your own, record yourself, because you need to be producing. So for instance, when I tried to learn French just last year, I don't think I did that well, partly because I wasn't immersed. I was learning it in the classroom, but I wasn't using it outside of the classroom. And a couple of the teachers were using a lot of English, etc. So for me, it was not a successful learning experience. But you have to be producing. So I was studying a lot outside of class, but I wasn't producing the language. I was listening to RFI, to France 24, to whatever in French. And so my listening got good, but you can listen all day and it's not really going to improve your speaking much. So what you can do is record yourself speaking, have a daily journal or a voice, whatever you call it, voice blog. Record yourself talking in English or whatever language, saying, this is what I did today. Even if nobody else listens to it, that is still very good practice for production.
Khalid, we also have Mina that says, Medina, a book is what I recommend for my foreigner friends that want to learn Arabic. You can maybe ask Khalid if he knows this book or recommends it. Do you know the book?
I don't know that specific one. In Arabic, usually for American students, Al-Kitab, its full name is Al-Kitab fi Ta'allum al-Lugha al-Arabiyya, has been the dominant one. There are a lot of other smaller textbooks, not as well known, and there isn't anything really good for all purposes out there, honestly.
Khalid, you mentioned culture shock, and I think that's a part of immersion as a concept. And a lot of the commentators in the audience love the examples that you shared. So Selma Muluj, Hisham Blackwish, and Lina Baaziz, they're all asking if you can share an example or two about cultural misunderstandings you had or shocks that you had in Algeria, especially with the youth? What was the weirdest thing?
Actually, you know what? I just remembered one. So this is from Egypt, actually, not from Algeria, I'm afraid. But I think in Algerian culture, you'll appreciate it. So this is from one of my students in Alexandria, Egypt, an American student. So he, gets a long taxi drive, in Alexandria, pretty much across town. So it adds up. It's fairly expensive, but the whole way, it's like 20 minutes. He's chatting with the driver. They're getting all friendly. And then, so when he gets there, what do you think the driver says to him, Salman?
He charges him 1,000 guinea.
Well, that's one option, but the other option, the more culturally friendly option, is that he says, "La khaliha عندك خالص," yani. So don't pay anything. So the student, he didn't know culturally that is just, it's the driver being polite. So he said, "Oh, shukran, bye," and then gets out of the taxi and walks away. So then the driver gets mad fast and like runs out, and almost, they end up exchanging words in a very heated discussion, just because the student didn't understand that it's a mugamala. It's not something that's meant to be taken literally. He's not actually telling him, don't pay for this long taxi ride you just took.
Khalid, we also have Abdelkader Boukilka that says, what does Khalid think about the linguistic switch in the Algerian dialect?
Yeah, so the Algerian dialect is a really interesting one. When I was doing my master's degree at Georgetown, I studied Arabic linguistics, was one of the courses I took. And so I really love dialects specifically. And before I came here, I knew Egyptian and Iraqi are the two I'd say strongest in, and then I'm fine in Jordanian too, because I lived there for a while, because I worked at the US Embassy in Jordan before this. So all of those I'm comfortable in. But then when you come to Algeria, it's a big jump. You have a lot of French influence. You have borrowings from the various Amazigh languages. You have it's a real mix. It's a real hodgepodge of different influences, and it is very challenging for people who come into Algeria with with a background in just اللغة العربية الفصحى or Masri or whatever. And I think the toughest thing about Algerian actually is that it's not as predictable how you will say something. So in Egypt, there is a very clear dominant lahja Masriya, the Egyptian dialect. Like it's the Cairo dialect that you hear in musalsalat wal aflam وكذا. But in Algeria, if you ask two different or even five different Algerians how to say something, they might tell it to you 3 or 4 different ways. Like one person would use, so like when they're speaking Darija, some Algerians will use 5% French and 95% Arabic roots, and others will use the other extreme. They'll be speaking almost entirely in French, but yet they would consider that Darija. And then somewhere in the middle. So it's all, for someone coming in from the outside, it's fascinating, but very confusing.
Great. So, I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions related to your discussion on dialects. We have a question from Salma Moulouch. What is your favorite Arabic dialect? But also maybe you could just expand on why you decided to learn Arabic, why Arabic, and what interests you in this language.
زين، أنا لازم أقول لكم إنه أكثر لهجة أنا أحبها هي اللهجة العراقية. على مود أنا تزوجت واحدة عراقية، فإحنا نحكي ويا جهالي نحكي بس بالعراقي بالبيت. So we speak only in Iraqi Arabic in my house, because we want our children to speak to be fluent in Arabic. We don't allow them to speak in English. بس انا كمان بحب قوي اللهجه المصريه عشان انا اكثر حاجه قعدت في مصر يمكن 4 سنين ونص كله على بعض كده. So I would say those two are the two that I'm most comfortable in. And Jordanian, yeah, I mean I'm comfortable in it, but I wouldn't say I'm quite as fluent in it as Egyptian or Iraqi.
I just want to point out, I mean, Leticia, I think we should just give him a round of applause because he just switched from one dialect to another seamlessly. And also he talks in Algerian without any Egyptian or Iraqi words. So just round of applause to Khaled.
No, but if I speak at length in Algerian, I slip in more. My pronunciation is more Egyptian. Like if I'm speaking for a long period of time, I'll be switching more into Egyptian Fusha. Yeah, Algerian is still tough for me. I think Sam has a much better Algerian accent than I do.
But given the period of time you've been here, you've done a really great job.
So, I mean, it's all, yeah, again, it's for language learners, it's all about immersion. Try to find as much a way to put yourself surrounded by the language as much as you can. So I listen to a lot of Algerian TV shows, musalsalat and whatnot. And I find that very helpful in learning Algerian dialect.
You're doing great in Algerian. This is coming from an Algerian.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, you know, we had a lot of comments just praising your character, Khaled. Clearly, you have a lot of fans. We have comments asking if you're going to be the next ambassador. We have a lot of questions about you. You know, unfortunately, we don't have time for that. But I do see a lot of interest in Algerians that want to learn English. We have a comment from Ninu. Algerian workers can't attend ACCA because it's closed in the Algerian weekend. So Khaled, you know, maybe to end on, can you leave some advice for those who are wishing to learn English during this period where we can't really be around other English speakers, we can't really be attending the cultural center that we have here at the embassy? What kind of options do they have?
So, I mean, you're lucky in that you're living in an age where the internet really changes your options. Like, imagine how awful COVID-19 and the quarantine would have been back before the internet, and you're just sitting at home. You know, I'm quite a bit older than Salman, but I don't even remember what we used to do when we didn't have the internet, right? Did we just watch the 4 channels that were on TV or what? But there is a ton that you can do online. Starting with our resources, we have americanenglish.state.gov, which has full courses in English. There are also, and we'll add the links to these in the comments. There are also hundreds and hundreds of university courses which are available for free online. And again, try to make it so that you're not just passively listening. So you have to have active production as well. Like, it's not enough just to be listening and reading English. So try the voice journal where you're recording yourself. So you could maybe send it to friends. You can create WhatsApp groups with friends where you're sending your daily journal, talking about, you know, what you're doing, or it depends on your language level. Whether it's going to be something more abstract like culture or literature or politics or history, or it's going to be more basic like, what did I do today? You know, like my French level would be more like down here.
Well, great. You know, Khaled, there are, you know, plenty of people that are calling for you to become the ambassador. You know, I can't wait to see that day where I can work with you. Hopefully you're the ambassador and I'm someone who can speak Arabic as well as you. You know, I see you doing great things in your future. So thank you for being a guest on our show. And Leticia, as always, a great co-host. we all make such a good community working with each other, you know, at the embassy. That's one of the great things that I like is people help each other out with learning Arabic, French, English. I think it's been a really great experience being here for a year. Khaled, learning French, by the way, before we got to Algeria, and don't believe what he says. He speaks French perfectly fine. His daraja is incroyable. So, Leticia, anything to add?
No, that's it. Thank you, Khalid, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And of course, thank you, Salman, as always.
Yeah, Khaled, again, thank you so much.
And if I
Take
can just
care.
interrupt, if I can interrupt for the very last word, I'm not going to be the next ambassador. I just want to say that frankly here, because that's not how it works. You know, you have to be at a certain level in the State Department, and usually people who have been in the State Department for about 20 years, 25 years, then they become ambassador. So not me. There has not been an announcement yet who the next ambassador may be.
Yes, tune in maybe in a few years though, who knows? Anyway, thank you to everyone out there watching. Just to remind you, you know, these are regular events that we do. Most of you are stuck at home and still wanting to learn a language or learn some kind of skills that the embassy specializes in, whether that's English or learning about opportunities to become an entrepreneur, how to participate in exchange programs. Look, the embassy is doing all of these outreach programs like we are here on YouTube. So tune into all our shows. We have our next one scheduled on Sunday. Sorry, not the next Sunday, but the one after. And we always put out these on our social media, so you know about them in advance. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Please make sure to subscribe. Click on the red rectangle right down there. And we look forward to seeing you again.